The practice of police carding has gone by several names over the years. Street checks, community intervention, and now called community engagement. The practice with respect to all of these is the same. Police officers attend at selected neighborhoods, quite often and usually racialized or marginalized neighborhoods, and approach people who are simply minding their own business, doing nothing but perhaps standing on a street corner or tending to their lawn. They are usually persons of color, certainly marginalized persons. The officers approach these individuals, ask them to produce identification, a driver's license or some other form of ID. They then go through a series of questions which has included in the past where they live, where do they go to school, who are their associates. One of the questions has been, are your parents separated or divorced? So what the police are doing is gathering private personal information solely for the purpose of keeping an intelligence database. And literally hundreds of thousands of people in this city have a spot in that database with their own personal private information. That practice has gone on for decades. It's come to a head in terms of community concern over the last 8 to 10 years. And for 3 years, community groups and legal groups have made deputations, both written and oral, to the Police Service Board, which is the civilian oversight of the police, the board that administers that. And those deputations, after 3 years of very hard work by community groups, resulted in April of 2014 a new policy for carding. And that policy, although it wasn't perhaps everything that community groups had hoped for, it was a very large step in reducing the amount of racial profiling that takes part in this city under the name of carding. The policy in April 2014 would have required that police only approach individuals if they are actually involved in an ongoing criminal investigation and they believe the individual approached has some nexus or connection to that investigation, either as a possible suspect or a possible witness or somebody who might have information about that specific criminal investigation. The second important leg of the April 2014 policy was that police officers would be required to advise people they approach for carding that although they would like to ask them some questions, the person has the right not to cooperate and is free to go. The third important leg of that policy was that police officers would have to provide a receipt with the officer's name and badge number to the individual who had been stopped, approached, stopped, and subsequently carded if that was the case. All three of those key features of the April 2014 policy have now been gutted. The board directed the chief of police to implement those procedures by the end of last summer. Nothing happened during the summer, nothing happened in the fall or at Christmas. In December, the board reaffirmed its commitment to that April 2014 policy. In January, we were shocked to read that the board had now entered into mediation with a retired Superior Court judge and the police service about the policy that they had directed the chief to implement. The result of that mediation and backroom dealing by the board is a new policy which was introduced, hastily introduced, 2.5 weeks ago at a press conference with a lot of political fluffery by the mayor of Toronto, who is a member of the board. That policy has removed those three essential elements that I mentioned. In other words, the entire policy that the community has worked diligently for 3 years has been gutted by a backroom deal brokered by the board and the chief of police. The issue then is what will be the case when this policy is, in all likelihood, it's going to be passed this Thursday. We're back to the same old. It'll be the same old carding practice that existed prior to the April 2014 change of direction. Persons will be approached. It's clear, because of the neighborhoods in which Tavis operates, for example, that the overwhelming majority of persons who are approached will be racialized or marginalized or both persons. There was a lot of fluffery in the announcement of the new policy 2.5 weeks ago in saying that race is not to be a factor in the officer's decision to approach someone. A lot was made of this when really all the board was saying was that the police should obey the law. The Human Rights Code of Ontario requires that the police or any individual, government individual, not use race as a criteria or factor in determining any particular course of action. So with the new policy, if it is passed and approved this Thursday, we'll be back to the same old situation we were over the last several decades. What can people do now? Well, sadly, I think the only thing left for community groups and individuals is to take direct action. As I said earlier, community groups worked diligently for 3 years in preparing very detailed written and verbal submissions to the board, which resulted in the April 2014 policy. That obviously has been a complete failure. It's quite frankly the end of civilian oversight of the police, because the board has totally abrogated its responsibilities both under the Charter of Rights and the Human Rights Code. So all that's really left for community groups now is to organize, take direct action, become involved in movements dedicated towards putting an end to this practice. There is a press conference tomorrow, Tuesday, at the Sheraton Hotel, in which several community members will announce initiatives they are embarking on. And this Thursday, the Police Service Board meeting, which is being held at the police headquarters on College Street, starting at 12:30, I would encourage as many people as possible to attend that meeting. You don't have to make a deputation or make submissions, but just be in attendance to show your complete disapproval of this anti-democratic process that the board has now engineered. In terms of what individuals can do, there are literally thousands of you out there that have been unlawfully and illegally stopped under the guise of carding. We urge you to come forward to a group that has been put together to stop the practice of carding in terms of filing complaints under the Human Rights Code of Ontario. We obviously, in order to bring those actions, need individuals who have actually been carded, particularly if you've been carded within the last 12 months. So please get involved, get active. We can stop this. We simply have to change the mechanisms that we use.